Love bombing versus genuine love, the difference could save your heart. What if the person who feels like your soulmate is actually your biggest warning sign? What if the overwhelming affection, the constant texts, the expensive gifts, the promises of forever after only a week aren't signs of true love at all? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Love isn't always dangerous because it's absent. Sometimes it's dangerous because it arrives too fast. Today, we're uncovering the psychology behind love bombing versus genuine love, and by the end of this video, you may never look at intense romance the same way again. We've all dreamed of meeting someone who makes us feel special. Someone who chooses us without hesitation. Someone who texts good morning before we even wake up. Someone who says they've never felt this way about anyone else. Movies taught us this was romance. Social media celebrates it. Friends often envy it. But psychology tells a much more complicated story. Because while genuine love grows over time, love bombing explodes almost instantly. And surprisingly, both can feel exactly the same in the beginning. That's what makes it so difficult to recognize. Imagine meeting someone named Daniel. On your first date, he tells you he's never met anyone like you. By the third day, flowers arrive at your workplace. By the end of the week, he's talking about vacations together. Within 2 weeks, he's calling you his soulmate. He wants to spend every waking moment together. He tells you, "I've been waiting my whole life for you." It feels magical. Your friends say you finally found the one. For the first time in years, you feel completely chosen. But then, something changes. If you don't reply quickly enough, he becomes cold. If you spend time with friends, he suddenly feels abandoned. If you ask for space, he questions your commitment. The affection that once felt warm now feels like pressure. What happened? Nothing. This wasn't love becoming unhealthy. This was manipulation revealing itself. Love bombing isn't simply loving someone deeply. It's overwhelming another person with affection, attention, and promises in order to create emotional dependence. Notice the keyword, dependence. The goal isn't connection. The goal is attachment. Psychologically, love bombing works because our brains respond powerfully to rewards. Every compliment, every surprise gift, every affectionate message releases dopamine. The brain starts associating that person with emotional highs. It's almost like an addiction. When the attention suddenly disappears, you don't chase the person. You chase the feeling they gave you. That's why people stay. They're trying to get back to the beginning. Here's the scary part. Love bombing rarely feels fake. Most love bombers don't start by yelling or controlling. They start by making you feel like the most important person in the world. Because emotional manipulation doesn't begin with fear. It begins with fantasy. They study what you need. Validation, security, affection. Then they become exactly that. Not forever, just long enough. Because once you're emotionally invested, the rules quietly change. Now let's compare that with real love. Imagine another story. You meet Michael. He's kind, consistent. He doesn't promise forever on the first date. He doesn't shower you with extravagant gifts. Instead, he listens. He remembers small details. He checks in without demanding your attention. He respects your schedule. He encourages your friendships. He celebrates your independence instead of competing with it. Some people mistake this for boredom because it doesn't create emotional fireworks. It creates emotional safety. And safety often feels unfamiliar to people who've confused intensity with intimacy. This is one of the biggest psychological mistakes people make. They believe strong emotions equal deep love. But anxiety, obsession, butterflies, even emotional chaos can all exist without genuine love. Butterflies are simply your nervous system responding to uncertainty. Peace, on the other hand, often feels quiet, predictable, steady. Healthy relationships usually don't keep your nervous system in survival mode. They calm it. Here's an easy way to understand it. Love bombing asks, "What can I do to make you need me?" Genuine love asks, "What can I do to know you?" Love bombing wants possession. Love wants understanding. One wants control. The other wants connection. One fears losing power. The other builds trust. The actions might look similar. The intentions are completely different. This isn't because people are foolish. It's because we're human. If someone grew up feeling unseen, being intensely adored feels healing. If someone experienced emotional neglect, constant attention feels like love. If someone has been lonely, fast intimacy feels like home. Love bombers often don't create the wound. They simply discover where it already exists, and they unknowingly or intentionally build a relationship around it. That's why healing your past is one of the greatest forms of self-protection. First, everything moves incredibly fast. You're discussing marriage before you've learned each other's middle names. Second, the attention feels overwhelming instead of comforting. You almost feel guilty for wanting space. Third, they become upset when you're unavailable. Healthy people respect boundaries. Love bombers often see boundaries as rejection. Fourth, the affection feels conditional. When you agree with them, they're incredibly loving. When you disagree, they withdraw affection. And finally, you slowly begin losing yourself. You spend less time with friends, less time on hobbies, less time being the person you were before you met them. Love should expand your life, not shrink it. Real love grows slowly, not because it's weak, because trust takes time. It allows disagreement. It survives silence. It respects individuality. It doesn't panic every time life gets busy. Real love doesn't need to convince you every day that it's real. Its consistency becomes the proof. Instead of dramatic declarations, it quietly shows up again and again and again. Perhaps the greatest difference is this: love bombing makes you feel chosen, but genuine love makes you feel safe. One creates emotional dependency. The other creates emotional freedom. One says, "Don't leave me." The other says, "I'll still respect you even if you do." That's confidence. That's maturity. That's love. The hardest lesson about relationships isn't learning how to fall in love. It's learning how to recognize the difference between someone loving you and someone needing you to depend on them. Real love doesn't rush because it isn't afraid of time. Manipulation is. Because manipulation knows that if you slow down, you'll start asking questions. You'll notice inconsistencies. You'll remember who you were before they arrived. Sometimes the healthiest relationship you'll ever experience won't be the one that sweeps you off your feet. It will be the one that quietly teaches your heart that it no longer has to be afraid. If this video made you see love from a different perspective, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Because sometimes understanding psychology doesn't just change how we see relationships. It changes the relationships we choose. And before you go, here's something worth thinking about. Have you ever mistaken emotional intensity for genuine love? And if you slowed down today, what truths about your relationships might finally become impossible to ignore?